This program is proudly brought to you by Puma Energy and proudly supported by BSB, official sponsor of the 2015 Pacific Games, and New Guinea, exclusive carrier for the 2015 Pacific Games, and Coral Sea Hotels, preferred accommodation provider of the 2015 Pacific Games.
Good evening and welcome to the second last episode of Road to Port Moresby 2015. On tonight's show, we chat with Chief Executive Officer of the Games Organising Committee, Peter Stewart, on the final stages of preparations and operations for the Games, as well as a look into the newly refurbished Games venues. Now less than 20 days away from the Games, all eyes are on Port Moresby and the current sporting infrastructures. Jeremy Moggy went on a tour of the Tarama Indoor Aquatic Centre, the Bicini Parade and the Sir John Guy Stadium, led by guests of the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce and the Games Organising Committee. GOC CEO Peter Stewart stating his satisfaction that these games will be played in world-class facilities.
I'd like to welcome you to the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce hosted venue tour of the 2015 Pacific venues.
The centre boasts 6 indoor basketball courts, a 15-metre competition pool and a smaller 25-metre warm-up pool, as well as retractable seating which can accommodate just over 2,000 spectators.
Venue Operations Manager Ben, thank you very much for your time. Now, current dimensions, it is a big place.
It is. It's a fantastic venue. It's the biggest in the Pacific, I think, for a basketball and aquatic centre. The seating capacity here in the indoor is it's 2,500 seats. We are going to bring in another 700 odd seats, and there's 1,000 outside by the pool for spectators and 250 for VIPs. It's got 6 indoor basketball courts, which are also volleyball courts, and a 50-metre pool and a 25-metre warm-up pool.
I've also noticed state-of-the-art air conditioning from up top.
Yeah, it's actually a heat extraction, so it sucks the heat out and allows a breeze in, just cleaning the air. Yeah.
Would you say there are very few venues that can mimic this one here?
Very few. It was built off MSAC, but maybe I'm biased, but I think it's better than MSAC, which is the Melbourne Sports Aquatic Centre. It's just, yeah.
A member of the delegation was Peter Jonaitzi, country manager for Newcrest Mining Limited, impressed with what he saw upon entering the new stadium premises of the Sir John Guy Stadium.
Now, you've just seen the aquatic centre as well as the Bicini complex. What do you think of it so far?
Oh, look, I think the aquatic centre is coming up nicely. The pool was, I think, in excellent condition. I'm impressed with the pool, definitely impressed with the pool. The stadium, we're just about to tour, so we'll see what kind of work still required to be done there, but overall it looks like it's coming along well.
Up on the grandstands, the view of the arena was magnificent, and yet another visitor, John Pora, spoke of his pride at seeing the stadium and surrounding facilities.
When you look right now behind you, how do you feel?
It's actually very impressive. It's a proud moment, I think, for Papua New Guinea. Come 30 days' time, it's going to be a pleasure to host Pacific Islanders in a venue such as this. I know there's a lot of doubts with the scaffolding and things, but I went online and had a look at some of the designs around the world just to see whether we're following some trends and patterns around the world, and I think we are, and I think it's something that people can be proud of, and also rest assured, that the game's going to happen and that the facilities are in good order.
Another new structure is the state-of-the-art hockey field, which features a pop-up sprinkler system for the synthetic turf. Venue manager Lee Pockerup spoke to us of the amazement expressed by international visitors upon seeing the venue.
So the water cannons, basically it's an aqua turf, so it operates with some water in it, so it needs to be hydrated, and the water cannons pop out of the ground. There's 4 of them, and they keep the field sort of watered. We had a visit from the technical directors from all the Pacific Island countries that are coming, 28 of them. They were stunned. They've never seen anything like it. They basically said, PNG, you guys have just blown us out of the water.
The final stopover in the tour was the new PNG Power Dome, which will host weightlifting. The Games CEO ending the tour talking about the high standard of the venue and awe-inspiring feeling it would give to visitors.
Absolutely superb renovation of an existing venue that was here. World-class sprung floor, can be used for all sorts of different sports. So when the athletes come here, they will be competing on fields of play that are as good as anywhere in the world. And if you come here and watch those athletes, they'll be performing to their best because of the facilities that are here. Big crowd, close atmosphere. This will be a very exciting venue to be in, without a doubt. Particularly from a Pacific Games point of view. These are the biggest venues. We've got the biggest number of athletes. There are so many firsts for this Pacific Games, you wouldn't believe it. The largest broadcast, qualifying points for most of the sports, Olympic qualifiers. This event is going to be something special, I can guarantee you.
Stewart joins us on the set of Road to Port Moresby 2015 for a wrap of the operations leading into the Games. We talk security, we talk ticket sales, and we talk Games venues. Joining me on the second last episode of Road to Port Moresby 2015 is Chief Executive Officer of the Games Organising Committee, Peter Stewart. Mr. Stewart, welcome.
Great to be with you, Lorraine.
Now, tonight marks 17 days away from the 2015 Pacific Games. How are things looking?
It's funny when those numbers come up all the time, because as far as my team's concerned, they're well and truly in Games operation. So we've got the venues are all pretty well up and running now. We've started doing test events. Our volunteers are trained. We've got the village opening in very soon, in only about 5 or 6 days' time. So as far as we're concerned, we're up and operational.
Now, in terms of the venues, yes, they're all ready, but I guess one of our biggest concerns is obviously the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium. Perhaps you can comment a little bit on that.
Sure. Sir Hubert Murray Stadium is going to be the venue for the medal presentation and the finish for the triathlon. It is a major iconic venue here in Port Moresby, and we'll also be using it for some other activities, but the grass unfortunately has just not come up to what we were hoping for, so all of the soccer is now being played at Bassini.
Now, just going back to venues and testing and trialling the venues, last Saturday the Hunters played at the refurbished Sir John Guyce Outdoor Stadium, and that was fantastic. Were you there?
Yes, I was there. We had nearly all of the GOC staff were working on that night. The amazing feeling within the venue, because people were walking in and going, have a look at this venue. Is this really Papua New Guinea? Look at it, it's world class. And I'm sure that the players, when they ran out onto the field, thought exactly the same thing. We were really pleased to see the way that the crowd behaved as well, because that's an important part of having big crowds at these venues, particularly during the Games. We want it to be a family-friendly environment, and everybody behaved very well, both in purchasing tickets beforehand, in the way they queued up and coming in plenty of time to get there, and then the way they behaved during the games as well.
Now, obviously, the security was taken care of quite well, and transport as well. Can we see the same thing happen in July?
The things that were trialled on the night on Saturday are exactly what we're going to be doing during games period. So the park and ride facilities were up and were established and were very well patronised, and did a fantastic job in transporting people who will not be able to park at the venues during the games period either. They brought all of the spectators in and again took them home safely afterwards. We had police around the venue and inside the venue to ensure that there was no problems, but we didn't really have any issues. The crowd were incredibly well behaved. But we trialled a whole range of other things that are going to happen at games time that aren't normal here in PNG. So we did what we call mag and bag, which is magnetometer searches and bag searches of everybody coming in, just to make sure that they weren't bringing any prohibited items. We had a very, very strong cleaning compound going on during the games period. So there was cleaning being done, not just of toilets and facilities like that, but also of the general area. We had a raft of rubbish bins around for people to use. So we want to keep the venues very clean during the period of the games, because for many of the venues they'll operate from perhaps 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. So we don't get the opportunity to clean them at the end of the session. We have to keep cleaning during the time.
Now, in terms of transport, going back to transport, have the contracts been just awarded to one company, or has it been spread out to a group of companies?
So there's a number of different transport systems that are working during the games. For the athletes and the team officials, we have a games transport system. So the only people who can use those are people who are accredited. That has been done through Pindu Transport, and they have subcontracted to a raft of different private operators, and they've put together a fantastic fleet of clean, well looked after, well maintained vehicles. We've spent a lot of time with the drivers, training them so they understand the routes and the processes that they need to use to get around during games time. And then we also have a number of sedans and smaller vehicles which are available for the VIPs. Then there's the public, and the public will be transported to the games through the normal PMV system. We've done a lot of work with the Department of Transport and the PMV operators, and they again will be running until quite late at night to ensure that people can get home from venues that finish perhaps at 9 o'clock at night. And we're hoping that the whole standard of the PMV operations and public transport system will lift a little bit and hopefully remain that way after the games.
Now, the Hunters match sold out in less than one day. How are the ticket sales going for the Pacific Games? I hear the opening ceremony has already been sold out.
Not quite. There are still about 3,000 seats in the outer stand available for the opening ceremony. So please, if people want to get a ticket, they can go in and get those final few tickets. We're about 80% sold out for the closing ceremony. Some of the smaller indoor venues, we're very close to being sold out. Swimming is sold out. You cannot get a ticket, unfortunately, for swimming now, or fortunately from our point of view. It's going to be a great crowd for the athletes. A number of the venue packages, which were discounted packages, so you buy all of the sport in a particular venue for the whole games. Most of those are gone now, which is fantastic. That response has been wonderful, but there are still plenty of tickets available for daily tickets for nearly all the sports except for swimming.
Now, going back to the Hunters, we did see an issue with counterfeit tickets. Sports Minister Justin Chichenko had actually posted that up on his social media page. Has that been addressed by the Games Organising Committee for tickets for the Pacific Games?
Yes, the Hunters game didn't have the opportunity that we've had for a long run into our ticket program. So in our printing process and in the stock that we use, there are a number of anti-counterfeit measures that are there that make it impossible to just photocopy directly, and we have staff on the gates who have been trained to look for what those particular devices are to ensure that counterfeit tickets don't get through.
In this final segment, we continue with the interview with Peter Stewart. Now they say the opening ceremony is a very ambitious project. Is everything on track for the opening ceremony?
Yes, Makota, who are the producers of the opening ceremony and the closing ceremony, have been working for many months in putting all of their preparations together. They started rehearsals probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, so that's been in train. Those people who have seen the storyboards and the outline for the opening ceremony are just absolutely flabbergasted at how wonderful it is. And a couple of my staff who saw it had tears in their eyes when they saw what was going to be presented. So we're very excited about the message that's going to be sent out around the world about Papua New Guinea through the opening ceremony.
Now, how is the arrival of the baton going to be incorporated with the opening ceremony?
Well, I can't let too much away, but certainly the baton, the oil search baton, which has been going all around Papua New Guinea, links all of our provinces to the opening ceremony. So it has a very important role to play. And those people who see it in the opening ceremony, who have perhaps touched it or even run with it during the course of the oil search games relay, they're going to have a really special connection to the opening ceremony and the rest of the games as a result.
Now there is a lot of talk about this year's games being one of the biggest and obviously the best games ever. Why is that?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons for it, Lorraine. Every Games wants to be bigger and better than the previous one. I'm sure Tonga want to do things better than we've done it in 2019. So always there's a natural progression of incremental increases in quality of the product that's delivered. But right at this point in time in Papua New Guinea, it's a wonderful time when Papua New Guinea is emerging as a real player in the Pacific. And it's not just because of the resources, it's also because of education, it's because of a whole range of things that Papua New Guinea is now able to export to the rest of the world. And these games are a key message from the government of the day to be able to show that Papua New Guinea can stand on its own 2 feet anywhere in the world. So some of the things that are really important from our point of view are broadcast. We intend to have the largest broadcast of any Pacific Games. We have 21 rights holders, which is significantly more than any other Pacific Games has had. It will be broadcast live for the first time in Australia and New Zealand because of their participation and because the rights holders have taken that. And that sends a wonderful message to the world, not only about the images of Papua New Guinea, but also the fact that we have the technology and the resources here to deliver high quality communications. And of course that's important because if businesses see that we can do a broadcast well, it means that they can run their businesses here because the communication is comparable to anywhere in the world.
Now just going on to the preparations of athletes. Now we've seen quite a few teams pull out, most recently Fiji's volleyball team and obviously Papua New Guinea and the men's softball. From your point of view, is it disappointing to see some of the teams pull out?
What people don't realise is that the process for entering teams into the Games has this planned in it. So we've always said that there are going to be around 4,000 athletes. We have 5,000 athletes on our books. That's what always happens in a Games environment. They have what's called a long list, which gets entered, and between when they enter in their long list and when the teams actually arrive, they hone down that team. So this is a normal practice that goes on in every Games. It's always disappointing when teams pulling out mean that a particular sport is unable to be played, as was the case with the softball, but it's a normal process that goes on, and we're not at all disappointed from that process. We understand that it's going to happen and we know that it's going to happen and we've been planning for it.
Now going back to the baton relay, it's been almost through every single province. It's yet to arrive in Port Moresby, but the level of patriotism has definitely increased. Have you been on one of those trips?
No, I've been unfortunately unable to get away to one of the provinces. A number of our board members have, and obviously our team who are travelling with the baton come back and tell us stories. But I've seen the footage and I've seen the photos, and I understand it's like travelling with a rock star. Everywhere they go, the baton is mobbed by people. I did the Tura tour early in the year, and it was like travelling with a rock star at that stage. So Tura was just 1/10 of what's happening with the baton. So I know that people are excited by it. Some of the images we're getting are just superb. to not only to showcase the people but also the natural splendour of Papua New Guinea. And those images are going all around the world. We monitor what's happening on media internationally, and I can tell you that there's enormous interest in how the oil search baton relay is going.
Now, speaking of Tura, what has he been up to these days? He's gone a bit quiet.
Well, Tura's been travelling around with the baton, and that's probably why he's been a little bit quiet. If you've been up in any of the provinces, then you would have seen plenty of Tura. He's been visiting schools, hospitals along the baton route, but he'll be back here soon. Every now and then he flies in and does a little visit. We were out, Tura was with us out at Tete the other week, and there was a big community engagement program running there. And Tura will continue to go around to community groups, and then at games time you'll see Tura going through all the venues.
Now, we do have quite a lot of Pacific Islanders residing here in Port Moresby. When can we expect the teams to arrive?
Yeah, the teams all start to arrive on about the 1st. They're all in, obviously, by the 3rd or the 4th. We have a number of discussions with community groups here, and I know that the nations are having discussions with their nationals who live here in Papua New Guinea. We have a number of attachés who are appointed to link the community groups into the various nations, and we have the Adopt a Nation program. While we want everybody to be comfortable supporting Papua New Guinea, there is a number of other athletes who are coming which would really appreciate a bit of support for them as well. And they'll get that not only from the nationals from their countries who live here in Port Moresby, but also hopefully from the people of Port Moresby will embrace some of the other teams as well.
Well, Mr. Stewart, thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Look, Lorraine, the only thing I would say is to people, this comes along once in a generation. And if you don't get some sort of involvement with these games, I think you're really going to miss out and you're really going to regret it. So whether it be buy a ticket, whether it be come down and watch some of the free to the public events, whether it's being involved in some of the groups, the cultural performances, whatever it is, get out and get involved in it, because if it passes by, and it will be gone in 4 weeks, the Games is over, it will be gone before you know it, and people will regret it.
Well, there you have it. Peter Stewart, Chief Executive Officer of the Games Organising Committee. We're definitely Games ready come July. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Road to Port Moresby 2015. If you'd like to view this episode again, do visit the link shown on the screen and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for your company. Good night.
This program was proudly brought to you by Puma Energy and proudly supported by BSB, official sponsor of the 2015 Pacific Games, and New Guinea, exclusive carrier for the 2015 Pacific Games, and Coral Sea Hotels, preferred accommodation provider of the 2015 Pacific Games.